The first time I realized I was no longer part of the family was not through some explosive argument or betrayal shouted in the heat of rage. It came in silence. A photo. No warning. Just an Instagram story, my sister Melissa, standing beneath a string of twinkling lights, holding hands with her fiancé, Andrew, with the caption, "So grateful to celebrate with the people who truly matter." I stared at the screen for 10 seconds too long. Long enough for my phone to go black, the screen smudged by my thumb, my reflection barely visible beneath the glass. My name wasn't tagged. No invite had come. No text, no call, no casual mention during the last few family Zoom calls. Just this photo, and that sentence. My name is Claire. I'm 35. I live in Denver, Colorado, where I've built a quiet but stable life as a remote marketing consultant. I'm the eldest daughter, the responsible one. The fixer. The one who remembers birthdays and tax deadlines and who answered every 2 a.m. call from my younger sister, even when I had back-to-back client meetings the next morning, but apparently, none of that qualifies you as someone who truly matters. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone. I simply watched. Watched the next few stories unfold like a glossy wedding magazine, engagement brunch with champagne flutes, a countdown to forever, Melissa modeling white dresses with her friends screaming in the background. Friends. Plural. All present, and I wasn't even informed that I called mom. I was calm. Too calm. My voice could have passed for someone asking for directions. Did you know Melissa's wedding is next month? A beat. Then the sound of her breath catching, not from surprise, but from the irritation of being cornered. Oh, Claire. Don't be so dramatic. It's only a wedding. Only a wedding. This was the same woman who once demanded I drive 6 hours through a snowstorm to drop off Melissa's forgotten laptop charger. The same woman who made me skip my best friend's bachelorette trip because Melissa needed help moving into her college dorm. But now? Now that I wasn't invited to Melissa's wedding? Only a wedding. The words lodged somewhere between my throat and chest. I didn't respond. I hung up. Quietly, then I did something even quieter. I opened a blank spreadsheet. Logged into the bank account I shared with my parents, the one mom used occasionally, for emergencies. Then I pulled up the co-signed student loan I'd guaranteed for Melissa 6 years ago. The one she promised she'd refinance. I started collecting documents. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but I knew I was done waiting for anyone to hand me dignity. That night, I found the email thread I'd buried from 2 years ago. The one where Melissa asked me to check if Andrew had been messaging a girl named Tessa. She didn't ask our mother. She didn't ask her friends. She asked me. I ran the search. Found proof. I sent her screenshots, all while she sobbed on the phone. And after all that, she stayed with him. Blocked me for a month. Told people I was trying to sabotage her relationship out of jealousy. Now she was marrying him. And I was the liability that didn't fit the aesthetic. I returned to Instagram. And clicked on the comments. Most were heart emojis. One from Jenna, our cousin, said, "Can't wait to party with the best bride ever." Melissa had replied with 3 champagne bottles and, "Wouldn't be the same without you. Wouldn't be the same without Jenna." I scrolled up to my last DM with Jenna. 8 months ago. I'd sent her a job listing in her field. She'd seen it. Never replied. I closed the app. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was hurt. Not even because I was angry. But because I realized something far worse. I had been preparing for this my entire life and hadn't even known it. Every sacrifice. Every time I swallowed my exhaustion, skipped a vacation, footed a bill, or stayed silent to keep the peace. All of it had been training. Not for approval. But for erasure, and I had let it happen. The next morning, my boss called to remind me about a strategy session. I told her I'd be working remotely from Sedona next week. Vacation, she asked. No, I replied. Reset. I booked the resort. A full week. Spa access, hiking trails, digital detox. Then, without saying a word to anyone, I scheduled one post. A photo from last year, me standing on a cliff during golden hour, arms open to the wind. Caption, "Sometimes the clearest silence comes after the deepest betrayal." I clicked, post. 17 minutes later, my phone lit up. Mom. Then. Again. Dad. Then Jenna. A message came through. "Is this about the wedding? Claire, don't start something now. Melissa's stressed enough." I didn't answer. An hour passed. Another message. This one from Melissa herself. "You've made this harder than it had to be." That was when the second realization hit me. This wasn't just oversight. It was orchestration. They hadn't forgotten me. They had discussed me. Decided. Agreed. The whole family machine had turned its gears in silent consensus and spat me out like a piece that no longer served a purpose. The betrayal wasn't the lack of invitation. It was the coordination. The shared decision to act like I didn't exist, and the expectation that I would accept it, but I didn't. I opened my laptop and began drafting the paperwork to remove myself from Melissa's loan. I had no legal obligation to her anymore, and if she wanted to throw a six-figure wedding, she could finance it with her own name, not mine. As I worked, a memory surfaced. I was 15. Melissa was 10. She had stolen my earrings and lied about it. Mom asked me, not her, asked why I had let her go through my things. And when I protested, she said, Claire, sometimes it's easier to just be the bigger person. I had been the bigger person for 25 years. And what had it earned me? A family that assumed I'd stay silent, no matter how loud their cruelty became. That night, I received one final message before turning off my phone. It was from Dad. A simple text, hey, let's not make this ugly. Weddings are complicated. And there it was. The final confirmation. He wasn't calling to understand, or to ask why. He was calling to manage optics. To prevent ugly. I smiled because they thought I was just reacting. That this was a moment. That I'd cool off, but this wasn't a reaction. It was a revelation. The next day, I turned in the loan release forms. Called my financial advisor. Asked him to audit all shared accounts, investments, and emergency contacts. I would leave no door open for them to crawl back through, and as I drove out of Denver toward Sedona, the mountains shrinking in my rearview mirror, I whispered a truth. That felt foreign on my tongue, but ancient in my bones. I wasn't disinvited. I was set free. And freedom, it turns out, starts with saying nothing at all. Just closing the door firmly, quietly, for good. The first lie they told wasn't that I was invited. It was that nothing had changed. That everything was fine. That I was just imagining things. 2 days after I posted that photo in Sedona, Jenna messaged me. Casual. Cheerful. Fake. Hey. Just wanted to check in. Melissa's bachelorette party is this weekend. Are you bringing the matching pajamas or should I? I stared at the text for almost 5 minutes, letting the question settle like ash over coals. Matching pajamas. I hadn't even been invited to the wedding. Now someone was expecting me to bring sleepwear to a party I didn't know was happening. I replied with one word, pajamas. Jenna took 30 minutes to reply. I imagined her reading my message, realizing she'd just pulled off the social equivalent of a tripwire. Her answer came flat, like someone stepping backward slowly. Wait. I thought Melissa talked to you. Maybe I got the wrong Claire? LOL. Wrong Claire. That was the second lie. I scrolled back through our old messages. 10 months ago, Jenna had asked me to help edit her resume. I rewrote it completely, even prepped her for 2 interviews. She got the job. Never thanked me. Just sent a thumbs up emoji when I followed up. Now I was the wrong Claire. I didn't respond. I just screenshot the message and saved it to a folder on my phone called Receipts. I'd just created it. I knew I'd be filling it fast. That night, I did something petty. Small. But precise. I logged into the shared Google Drive we had as a family, created years ago to coordinate holiday plans, grocery lists, family schedules. I deleted every document I'd uploaded, meal plans, budget templates, trip itineraries, even Melissa's scholarship application I'd ghostwritten. All gone. I didn't leave a trace. Then I logged out. By morning, I had 5 notifications from Google. Someone had tried to access grad_school_letter_Claire_draft.docs, and it no longer existed. They weren't just used to me being there. They built systems on my back. I went back to Instagram. I watched, silently, the party unfold in real time. Melissa in a white robe with bride glittered across the back, surrounded by women wearing identical pink satin. Champagne. A rented Airbnb with rose petals in the bathtub. Hashtags like #BrideVibes and #SistersBeforeMisters. I recognized most of the faces. One of them, Carly, had borrowed $300 from me last year when her car broke down. Said she'd pay me back in a week. Never did. Another, Savannah, once begged me to drive 4 hours to pick her up from a ski lodge because her boyfriend left with the car. I did. I wasn't tagged in a single post, but someone tagged me anyway. A friend from college, Natalie, messaged me privately. Hey, I thought I saw your sister on someone's story? Weren't you supposed to be in her bridal party? I didn't answer her either, but something about that message stuck. Because Natalie had no reason to ask, no reason to poke the wound. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but she asked. Genuinely, and I realized something. The people outside the family matrix. They could see. The ones who weren't groomed to overlook my absence noticed it immediately. That contrast made everything clearer. Later that afternoon, I called my dad. A test. He picked up on the second ring, sounding startled. Hey, kiddo, he said. Hey, Dad. Just wondering, did Melissa say anything to you about the bachelorette party? Long silence. Then, I'm I'm not sure I'm supposed to. Listen, your mom said it's just a small thing. Girls only. You know how weddings are. There it was. The third lie, girls only, and still, somehow, not me. I wanted to ask him. What version of reality do you live in where you can say that sentence and not hear how broken it is? Instead, I changed the subject. Asked about his blood pressure. Told him I'd email him a link to a magnesium supplement. Played the role I always had, the responsible daughter, the buffer, the nursemaid. Then I hung up and didn't send the link. That was my first act of war. Quiet. Almost imperceptible. But it was a departure from the role I was written into. Days passed. The photos got more glamorous. One of them caught my eye, Melissa in a kitchen, slicing cake. In the corner of the frame, blurry but unmistakable, the cutting board I bought her for her 30th birthday. The one she never thanked me for. She'd laughed when she unwrapped it. Claire, you're so practical. The caption, surrounded by love. Surrounded, but not protected. That night, I got an email from Melissa. The subject line was blank. Just her name in the from field, like that alone should signal peace. Inside, 2 sentences, I'm sorry if you felt left out. That wasn't the intention. If felt, not you were left out. Not I left you out. A passive apology from an active betrayal. I read it twice. Then again. There was something familiar about the phrasing. So I ran a search. I'm sorry if you felt, and the rest of the sentence autofilled. A classic non-apology. PR tactic 101. I had taught Melissa that. During one of her first job interviews, she asked me how to handle conflict resolution questions. I told her, if you're going to deflect, at least sound sincere. Now she was using my own technique to gaslight me. I didn't reply. But I knew I had to do more than just remain silent. So I opened my old laptop. The one I hadn't used since helping Melissa prep her wedding budget last year. The file was still there. I read through the Excel sheet, noting every cost. The dress. The venue. The florals. The backup plan for rain. My name was nowhere, but I remembered the night she called crying because the deposit bounced. I wired her $800 the next day. She never mentioned it again. I'd forgotten too, until now. I printed the wire confirmation and added it to the receipts folder. Then, I opened a new document. Titled it, Exit Plan. I started with my financial assets, joint obligations, and family ties I could legally sever. I listed every person I owed nothing to but who acted like I did. It was time to stop pretending the bridge still existed. 3 days later, I received a package. No note. Just a glossy envelope with gold foil letters, Melissa and Andrew. September 14, Rancho Vista Gardens. Inside, a wedding invitation. No+1. No role in the ceremony. Just a seat. It arrived late. Not by accident. By design. Melissa was always precise when she wanted to be. It was her way of control. Send something just late enough that I could attend, but not plan. Late enough that I'd feel like an afterthought. But not excluded, and if I didn't come, she could say she invited me. I placed the envelope in my shredder. Slow. Page by page. Then I sent one final message. To Jenna, wrong Claire, right? No reply. I didn't need one. Because now, I knew, they weren't ignoring me. They were building their story without me, and hoping I'd still foot the bill, but they forgot one thing. I don't fund stories I'm not in. Sedona didn't heal me. That would have been too clean. Too Instagrammable. No, Sedona clarified. Me. It carved silence into something sharp enough to wield. The red rocks, the stillness, the way the desert heat pressed against my skin, it didn't soothe me. It reminded me how much noise I had mistaken for love. I arrived with no agenda. Just the knowledge that I couldn't stay in Denver. At least not while the bridal circus was in town. I left behind the invitation I'd shredded, the group chats I'd muted, the entire performance I'd been scripted out of, and I carried nothing with me except one small suitcase, and the weight of every apology I never received. The resort was beautiful. Stark in its luxury. A kind of curated calm that, in any other season of my life, I might have called pretentious. But now? It was a theater of control. Every stone raked into place. Every lavender-scented towel folded with intent. I found a strange comfort in it. Nothing was accidental. Nothing was chaotic. Unlike home. On the second morning, I walked to the edge of a cliff trail just before sunrise. I took a photo of my feet hanging over the ledge, the world still asleep below. I captioned it, "Peace isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's just the absence of permission." Then I hit post. The impact was immediate. Not public, private. 17 notifications. All from the family vault I had locked behind glass. Jenna, girl, what are you doing? Melissa's in tears. Mother, Claire, don't do this. This isn't the time. Dad. Nothing. As usual. Then Melissa, I don't know why you're making this about you. That was the moment the roles snapped fully into place. She was the bride. The protagonist. The one who cried on cue. I was the disruption. The rogue element. The inconvenient subplot that threatened the symmetry. They didn't need me. Not until I disrupted the story they were telling about themselves. That night, I didn't sleep. Not from pain. From clarity. At 2 a.m., I sat at the edge of the hotel's infinity pool, watching my reflection fracture in the water's quiet ripples. I thought about every time I had been edited out of the family narrative. When Melissa broke her leg skiing and I carried her to the car, Mom told everyone it was Dad who stayed calm. When I worked 3 jobs to help pay off our parents' second mortgage, Mom called it luck that I landed well-paying clients. The past wasn't a record. It was a revision, and I was done playing the background character in someone else's fantasy. I posted again. This time, no caption. Just me, wine glass in hand, back turned, the desert sun spilling gold across my shoulders. No smile. No statement. Just existence. 2 hours later, a message from an unknown number. I hope this isn't a stunt. You're embarrassing, Melissa. I didn't reply. But I screenshotted it. Receipts. Later that afternoon, I received a call from the hotel front desk. There's a delivery for you. I walked down expecting maybe a spa sample or fruit basket. Instead, I was handed a thin white envelope with no return name. Inside was a note. Printed, not handwritten. If you come to the wedding, we'll forget all this. Family comes first. No name. But I knew that font. My mother's printer. The one she used for birthday cards, school essays, resumes. It wasn't even a threat. It was a directive. A command dressed as an olive branch. They weren't asking me back. They were offering a transaction. Comply, and we'll pretend none of this happened. I folded the note once, then again, until it was too small to be read. Then I dropped it into the hotel fire pit. Let them forget all this. I wouldn't. That night, I made a new list. I didn't title it. Just names. Not people I hated. People I had quietly carried. People whose problems I had made my responsibility, while mine were deemed too inconvenient. Jenna, whom I lent money to after her second DUI. Dad, who never stepped in but always benefited from my silence. Melissa, who had never once repaid the 5-figure sum I transferred during her unemployment, but made a joke once that I was obsessed with being the martyr. Even Maya, my best friend, had looked at me with pity when I first told her about the wedding snub. Maybe it's not personal, she'd said, but it was. Of course it was. And I was done explaining the obvious. At midnight, I posted a third photo, this time a quote. I was never angry. I was awake. No hashtags. No location tag. Just a red slash through the caption, like a page torn from a book you're no longer reading. By morning, I had voicemails. One from Jenna, this is spiraling. You need to stop. One from Mom, your sister is on the verge of a breakdown. Are you really okay with that? One from an unknown male voice I recognized too late, Andrew. He didn't say his name. He didn't have to. I just think it's sad, he said. You're proving everyone right. That was new. Andrew had never contacted me directly. Not even when I sent him the screenshots 2 years ago, proof he was texting someone named Tessa while still with Melissa. He hadn't responded then, but now I was a threat, which meant only one thing. Someone had shown him my posts. Someone had decided I was no longer the weak link. I was the danger, and he was scared. Good, because I wasn't trying to destroy anything. Not yet. I was just showing what it looked like when the scapegoat walked off stage mid-performance, and left the spotlight burning on the one still pretending, and the stage was about to collapse, because I wasn't going to the wedding. I wasn't going to send a gift. I wasn't going to respond to the next inevitable offer to talk it out. I had already made the most definitive statement I could make in a family built on control. I disappeared. On purpose, not as punishment. As prelude, the day Melissa got married, I was nowhere near a church. I was in a white robe, barefoot, sitting on the balcony of my Sedona suite with black coffee cooling in my hand and the sound of canyon wind brushing across glass. I had silenced every notification. My phone was in airplane mode. The ceremony, according to the invitation I never acknowledged, was scheduled for noon Pacific time. At exactly 12:03, a hummingbird hovered near my balcony. I remember that vividly. Its wings were almost invisible, a blur of precision, vibrating with purpose. For some reason, I thought of myself. Then the knock came, not at my door. At the perimeter of my silence. A notification, the phone had reconnected to Wi-Fi without me noticing. 1 bar was all it took. A text from Jake, one of the few cousins I hadn't blocked. Claire. Are you seeing this? Attached was a Twitter thread. The kind that spreads like a virus, each repost adding fuel, each video angle pulling the narrative into sharper, bloodier relief. The opening clip was grainy. Shot from a rear pew. The wedding was mid-ceremony. Melissa stood at the altar, bouquet trembling slightly in her grip. Her smile was taut, something I recognized from childhood. The one she used when she wasn't sure if she was winning or surviving. Then Andrew turned, not to the pastor. Not to Melissa. He turned to the guests. And pulled something from his inside pocket. I paused the video. Zoomed in. Printed emails. Folded but unwrinkled, as if preserved for a specific hour. I hit play again. He didn't yell. That made it worse. He said one sentence. It wasn't a confession. It was a command, tell them. Or I will. Gasps. A ripple across the front rows. Melissa didn't move. He held the papers out. She didn't take them. Instead, she whispered something, inaudible. He didn't reply. Just dropped the papers on the altar. Turned. Walked out. The camera jolted. Someone ran after him. A woman screamed. A man shouted, "What's going on?" Then chaos, but I only watched one thing. Melissa, she didn't chase him. She didn't cry. She stood there. Like a wire that had finally snapped but didn't realize it was no longer holding tension, and I saw it then. She knew this was coming. She wasn't stunned. She was cornered. That meant this wasn't sabotage. It was consequence. I watched the video 3 times. On the 4th, I noticed something no one else would have caught. I end the chaos. Someone kicked the dropped papers. One page slid across the marble floor. The font was Arial. 10 point. Melissa always used Calibri. The emails weren't printed by her, which meant someone had intercepted them, and that meant someone had sent them. I went still. 2 years ago, she cried to me about Andrew. About his coldness, his secrets. I asked if she wanted to know the truth. She did. I found out more than she expected. I sent her screenshots. She ghosted me for weeks after, but she never deleted them. Someone had access to her phone. Or her cloud. Who? I didn't know, but whoever it was, they didn't do it for me. They did it to protect Andrew, because no man delivers a public reckoning unless he's already curated the ending. By 1 p.m., I had 37 unread messages. First, Jenna, what happened? She's not talking to anyone. Then Mom, Claire. We need to speak. Immediately. Then a new number, you should be ashamed of yourself. You pushed her too far. No name. But the phrasing matched Melissa's high school best friend, Stephanie. A girl I once defended in a hallway fight. She'd gone silent for 15 years. Now she found her voice. Convenient. At 2 p.m., I received the only message that stung, from Dad. I don't know what's going on, but this is too much. Please, can we just talk? Short. Measured. Cowardly. He never asked me what had been done to me, only what I was doing to them. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because they didn't want reconciliation. They wanted containment, damage control, but I wasn't leaking chaos. I was opening floodgates. By sunset, the news had jumped platforms. Reddit. Instagram Reels. A bridal gossip page reposted the scene. A caption in all caps, he left her at the altar after confronting her with messages to her ex. The comments were brutal. Some pitted Melissa. Most didn't. One said, "This is why you don't play 2 sides." Another, someone in her circle clearly hates her. And that was the reversal. The betrayal wasn't mine. It had come from within, someone close, someone with access, someone who watched her build this fantasy wedding and decided, not today, not with him, not like this. I spent the evening in the spa. A private massage. Ocean salt soak. Eucalyptus steam. As my muscles loosened, my mind sharpened. They'd blame me. Of course they would. Melissa would cry. Mom would collapse into a performance of maternal grief. Jenna would flood group chats with fragments of a narrative they were already stitching like a cheap quilt, but none of that mattered, because for once, I wasn't in the house they were burning down. I was watching from a hill, drinking tea. The final text came at 9 p.m., from Melissa. 4 words, "You did this, Claire." And in that moment, I knew I had won something greater than revenge. I had become the storm they tried to name, but never understood, not chaos, not cruelty, just consequence, dressed in silence. Melissa's wedding ended in spectacle. But what followed was quieter, more familiar. The real aftermath isn't the explosion. It's the debris that no one volunteers to clean. I returned to Denver with no announcement. No post. No comment. Not because I was hiding, because I was observing. Like a forensic pathologist arriving late to a crime scene, gloves on, heart already sealed off. I hadn't come back to reconnect. I came to extract myself, cleanly, without drama. But they mistook silence for surrender. The first sign was the voicemail from my mother. I didn't listen to it. Just watched the transcription float across my screen like a warning. She's not eating. She won't leave her room. Claire, be reasonable. Not please talk to her. Not we were wrong. Just a command framed as concern. Reasonable, the same word she used when she asked me to dip into my savings to cover Melissa's tuition after she lost her scholarship. You're always more financially reasonable than your sister. That line echoed now. Only this time, it came attached to a new kind of invoice. On Tuesday morning, a flagged message popped into my inbox. Subject line, urgent, action required. It was from the bank. The student loan I had co-signed for Melissa years ago was now entering a new phase, refinancing. Except the application was incomplete, they were waiting for one last thing. My signature. Chest tightened, not from fear, but recognition. This wasn't a request. This was a routine. One I knew by heart. I didn't reply to the bank. I replied to Melissa, loan? You assumed I'd still be available. That was your mistake. 3 hours later, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't her. It was Jenna. I just think maybe don't make decisions in anger, okay? She's really fragile right now. Anger.as if I were standing in flames, not sitting in a leather chair. Drafting legal paperwork. I said nothing. Jenna filled the silence. Look, the wedding blew up. But you won. Isn't that enough? That was her angle. This was a competition, and the scoreboard wasn't grief. It was leverage. I ended the call mid-sentence, and then I began. I pulled up every document tied to Melissa's name. The car registration we split after our father co-signed without telling me. The shared cell phone plan I'd forgotten she was still on. The utility bill with my name listed first. Everything I'd once absorbed because she wasn't good with paperwork was now ammunition she assumed I'd never fire, but I did. That same afternoon, I drove to the bank in person. No phone call. No appointment. I walked in wearing sunglasses and silence. The clerk didn't recognize me. That helped. I'm here to remove myself as guarantor. She blinked. Do you have cause? I handed her a manila folder. Dates. Records. Transfer. Receipts. She scanned the first page. Then looked up slowly. Understood. By 6 p.m., the loan was in limbo. No cosigner. No future funding. A message arrived that night. Melissa, what the hell did you just do? I stared at the screen, then typed slowly, what you taught me. There was no reply, but at 8:12 p.m., I received a call from an unknown number. It was Andrew. His voice was raw. Not angry, careful. I don't know what Melissa told you, he began. Don't lie to me, I said. Not now. He paused. You were right. About everything. She was still messaging him. Tessa's brother. My heart didn't lurch. I'd already known. But now, I had confirmation. Not just of betrayal, but that Andrew had been tipped off at the very last second. And not by me. She said you hacked her account, he added. Of course she did. She said you were jealous. That you always wanted what she had. I laughed. Quiet, flat. She never had anything I wanted. He was silent for too long. Then he said it. She was planning to move back in with your parents. They were going to ask you to cover the down payment anyway. The loan, this, was already decided. She thought you'd cave eventually. Already decided. That's what stayed with me, not the manipulation. Not the assumption, the process. I hadn't been invited to participate. I had been listed as a variable. By midnight, I did what I should have done years ago. I logged into my shared account with my parents. The one labeled emergency use. The one Mom accessed anytime something went wrong, a tire, a copay, a surprise vet bill for the dog Melissa bought and left behind when she moved in with Andrew. I drained the account, split it between two new ones. One under my name, the other under Maya's. She didn't know yet. But she would. That night, I posted one last photo from Sedona. An older one. My back turned to the sun, a canyon below, caption, peace is expensive. But cheaper than pretending. No hashtags. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was earned, because the next day, I received an email from my mother. Short. Clinical. Melissa is devastated. You've made things much harder for everyone. I hope you're proud. I didn't respond. I just added it to the folder. Title, Family Invoices. The receipts were no longer financial, they were emotional, and collection had begun. I returned to Denver 6 days after the wedding imploded, not out of guilt, but logistics. My lease was expiring. I had 2 storage units to clear, paperwork to sign, and one last thread to cut before relocating to Seattle. I didn't tell anyone I was back. I arrived just after midnight, checked into a business hotel downtown, and left the lights off as I unpacked. The city outside the window looked the same, but I wasn't. By morning, the news had settled. No new texts. No new voicemails. Just silence, not peace. Stillness, the kind that comes after a forest fire. I spent the day methodically. Bank. Notary. DMV, I revoked co-signatures, cancelled shared accounts, transferred my emergency contact designation from Mom to Maya. One form at a time, I erased the evidence of my prior role in the family. It felt like dissolving an identity I never agreed to wear. That night, I walked past my old apartment out of habit. The light in the hallway was flickering, same bulb that had been faulty for months. I used to report it. Not anymore. I paused, keys in hand, but didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in my car and stared at the front door. I remembered Melissa standing there barefoot 3 winters ago, sobbing into her hands after another fight with Andrew. I had let her in without asking. Why? She had slept in my bed that night. I had taken the couch now. I couldn't remember the last time she said thank you. Or if she ever had. The next day, I boxed the last of my belongings. Photos, certificates, books. I found a birthday card from 3 years ago signed in my mother's handwriting. To my steady Claire, thank you for being our foundation. At the time, I thought it was affection. Now I saw it for what it was, a job description. Foundations don't get celebrated. They get walked on. That afternoon, I posted a final photo before leaving the city. A still shot of my bare apartment, sunlight cutting across the floor. Caption, empty doesn't mean broken. Sometimes it means finished. I turned off comments. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then came a second call, this time, from a Seattle area code. I answered, Claire? It's Brian, the real estate agent. Your keys are ready. We've stocked the fridge. Welcome in advance. That was the only welcome I needed. I drove through the night. Didn't stop. Didn't announce my departure. I passed the state line sometime after 2 a.m., and with it, something unspoken lifted off me, like a wet coat I'd worn too long. Seattle was colder. But it was clean. The apartment was small, modern, quiet. The kind of place no one would look for. Me. The kind of place I'd never invite them to. I moved in with no furniture but a mattress and a desk. I didn't unpack immediately. I didn't need to. It felt right just to exist. On day 3, Maya called. I hadn't told her about the move. You vanished, she said. I arrived. I corrected. She was quiet. Then, your mom's been messaging me. I didn't respond. Good. I hadn't asked her to. But it mattered. You okay? She asked. I'm aligned. She laughed once, then said something that felt loaded. You know they think you're punishing them. I didn't reply, because I wasn't. I was punishing myself, quietly, every year I stayed. Later that week, I received my first mail at the new address. No name on the envelope. Inside, a printed photo. It was me, not recent, high school, senior year. I was holding Melissa on my back, both of us laughing. I remembered the day. She had just broken up with her boyfriend. I had skipped a midterm to cheer her up. On the back of the photo, in my mother's handwriting, we were always together. We can be again. There was no return address. I folded the photo, not to throw it away, but to file it with the others. The new folder on my desk was labeled simply, Memory versus Record. Because the problem wasn't the past. It was how they remembered it. They remembered the times I showed up as love. Not obligation. They remembered the support as bonding. Not survival. They remembered my silence as consent, and I no longer owed them the comfort of that misunderstanding. That weekend, I went to a local cafe by the harbor. Ordered black coffee, opened a book I wasn't reading. Just breathing. Then I saw them, across the street. 3 figures. My mother. My father. Melissa. I didn't move. They didn't see me. Not at first. Then Melissa turned. Our eyes locked. She said something to Mom. Mom looked. Dad hovered behind, hands in his pockets like he was waiting for permission to speak. They crossed the street. I didn't stand. My mother arrived first. Her smile was too quick. Claire. You look rested. I am, I said. Melissa didn't speak. Dad offered a half wave, a school principal kind of gesture. We didn't know you were here, Mom said. I didn't announce it, I replied. She nodded, then lowered her voice. We just want to talk. No fighting. I sipped my coffee. She continued. Melissa's struggling. She's in therapy. She's trying to work. She's staying with us until she gets back on her feet. She fell, I said, flat. Excuse me? She didn't trip. She jumped. Silence. Then Melissa finally spoke. You shut me out. No, I corrected. You erased me. I just stayed gone. Mom leaned in. We're family. We make mistakes. That's how it works. No, I said again. Family doesn't get to define the damage and the recovery. Then came the last card. My father, clearing his throat. It's been hard for your mother. I turned to him. Has it? He looked away. Then I stood, calm and deliberate. Not to leave. To finish. This isn't closure, I said. This is consequence. If you want to remember me, remember the years I stayed quiet. Melissa's eyes glossed over. I'm sorry, she said suddenly. It wasn't expected. It wasn't dramatic, but it wasn't enough, because I knew it wasn't repentance. It was strategy. I nodded once, then walked past them, not away through as if they were fog, not fire, and in that moment, I didn't feel powerful. I felt free. There's a difference between moving on and being done. Most people confuse the two. One is escape. The other is execution. 3 weeks after I saw them in Seattle, my mother, my father, and the shell that used to be Melissa, I made an appointment with my lawyer. It wasn't dramatic. No legal battle. No posturing, just signatures. I updated my will, removed every name that had been placed there by tradition, not trust. No more parents as emergency contacts. No more shared accounts. No more beneficiaries whose names had remained by default, not by merit. When my lawyer asked who would be assigned medical power of attorney, I said, Maya. He blinked. Family friend? No, I said. Chosen family. He nodded once, without commentary. I appreciated that. Maya didn't know yet. I hadn't told her. Not because I feared her reaction, but because she wouldn't make it about her. Later that evening, I sent her a message, check your mail in 2 days. And thank you for existing in my life without needing to rewrite me. She replied instantly, whatever it is, I accept. That was all I needed. That same night, I logged into the digital vault where I kept scanned versions of my life, birth certificate, lease agreements. The original copy of the email Melissa had sent me 6 years ago, the one where she begged me to help her get into graduate school. I had written the majority of her personal statement, edited every paragraph. She got in. I got silenced. I read that email again. It ended with, you're the only one who gets me. Funny, how often love is just well disguised use. I closed the folder, renamed it, no more witnesses. The next morning, I received a package. A small one. No sender. Inside was a pair of earrings, gold. Minimalist. Tasteful, the kind I used to wear, the kind Melissa had once borrowed, and never returned. There was a note, in case you forgot what matters. No signature, but I didn't need one. It was the handwriting that gave her away. Mom. I held the earrings for a moment. They were cold, then I dropped them in the trash, not out of spite, out of recognition. Some objects don't carry meaning. They carry memory. And some memories deserve to be buried, not worn. By noon, I'd received 3 texts. Point 1 from Jenna, your mom's heartbroken. Please just respond. 1 from Dad, I wish you'd reconsider. She's not well. 1 from Melissa, just a link. It opened to a crowdfunding page, title, New Beginning After the Storm. Photo of Melissa looking pensive, in soft lighting. The description was a masterpiece of omission. After a painful year of love lost, I'm trying to rebuild. With your help, I can finally create a home filled with healing. No mention of Andrew. No mention of the wedding. No mention of the truth. But in the list of contributors, I saw 2 names that made my hand stop mid-scroll. Mom, $1000. Dad, $500. And beneath those, anonymous, $5000. I stared at that number, the same amount I had wired Melissa 2 years ago when she said her therapist was too expensive. I remembered the conversation. How she had cried. How she said, I'll pay you back. I swear. As soon as I can breathe again. She never paid me back, and now? She was selling her story to strangers for empathy I was never afforded. I didn't donate. I reported the page, violation of terms, fraudulent fundraising, let them investigate, let the platform ask questions. I wasn't after justice, just interruption. That evening, I drafted one final letter, addressed to my parents. I didn't send it. I saved it, because it wasn't for them. It was for me. I wrote, you raised a daughter who could be depended on. You forgot to raise a daughter who could be loved. You taught me silence is grace. But silence is also erasure. You let your weaker child become your favorite, and you let your stronger one carry all your weight. Then, the last line, I'm no longer carrying any of you. Walk on your own. I signed it. Then I burned it, not out of anger, out of finality. Maya called later that night. She had received the paperwork. You know you didn't have to do this, she said. I know. You still don't owe me anything. I know. But I'd fight for you, she said, quiet now. Not because I'm assigned to. Because I choose to. It hit me, then, that was the difference. Family by assignment expects you to bleed because you share blood. Family by choice holds your hand before you ever bleed. I didn't cry, but I felt something loosened. A single thread, uncoiling. The next morning, I changed the locks on my digital life, new passwords, new backup emails. Removed Mom's access to the family calendar I still somehow managed. Deleted every cloud document Melissa had ever shared. She could start over, but not with my foundation. That afternoon, I received a final email. No subject. No text, just a single image. A photo of Melissa in a therapist's office, blurry but posed. It was sent from an address I didn't recognize, but I knew who it was from. She wanted me to know she was doing the work. She wanted credit for a healing she hadn't earned. I didn't reply, because healing isn't a photo. It's the apology you give without needing to be seen. It's the repair done in silence, not for performance. That night, I changed my voicemail. The new recording was one sentence. If you're calling because you remember who I used to be, she's not available anymore. Then I powered off the phone, and slept like a person who no longer keeps their armor at the edge of the bed. Seattle's gray skies were a bomb. They muted the city's pulse. I move through my days like a whisper, an observer, no longer the stabilizer or the background noise of someone else's life. Every morning, I woke with intention. I made coffee, opened a book, walked the harbor. I didn't dwell on home. I didn't avoid it. I was simply elsewhere, but echoes persist. One Tuesday afternoon, I opened my inbox to find an article link from a cousin I barely knew. Thought you might want to see this, her note read. The subject, local bride's meltdown caught on camera, heartbreak or scandal. I clicked. It was the same footage from the ceremony, but expanded. Interviews with guests. Breathless speculation. One woman whispered, "I didn't know a wedding could implode like that." Another, "Her sister must have done something." The whisper turned to certainty. I stared at my reflection in the laptop screen and realized I'd become legend. Not by choice, but by absence. Then something unexpected happened. A message in my health portal, a result from routine labs I'd scheduled. Normally I'd overlook. But that afternoon, I saw it, high cortisol. Stress marker elevated, the note said. Not surprising. But beneath it was one line, recommend meditation and rest. I closed the app. I realized then my body was still waging a war I'd already decided to leave. That night, I meditated on it. Not for healing. For attention. I needed to know if I was truly free, or just tired of being tethered. Next morning, I added another appointment, this time with a financial advisor. I wanted to know exactly how far I'd come. Not out of pride, but clarity. 2 hours later, I received a call from an unknown Illinois number. I picked it. A woman's voice, "Claire, I'm Stephanie." My chest tightened. Stephanie had been at the wedding. The one whose voice I heard on the feed. We'd been friends in high school when promises were cheap and loyalties shifting. She'd messaged me that night, "You pushed her too far." Now she was calling me herself. "I saw you relocated," she said. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for the things I said." Her voice broke. I thought I was protecting her. I didn't know. That should have felt like reconciliation. Instead it felt like admission. Protection disguised as sibling rivalry. I said, "Thank you." No forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. She continued hesitantly, "People are saying, no one saw this coming." I didn't respond, because this wasn't about her surprise. It was about my intention. I rested the phone. Later, I received another message, this time from Andrew. Short. Need to talk. Lawyer involved. Call me. I didn't. The message hung unread. By evening, I had an email from my landlord, rent was late. I paid it immediately. As I clicked send, I noticed it, account under new management, authorized by Claire. My signature. Not a roommate's. Not a joint. Just mine. That detail, seemingly trivial, felt revolutionary. 2 revelations came to me, quickly. First, I could afford this place because I'd cut all the leeches. Second, they thought my silence meant weakness. At midnight, I drafted a post. Not for public, just for record. Dear life, I don't disappear. I reappear, intact. I saved it as a draft and never hit post. Next morning, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wasn't home often. I opened it to see a delivery. Man holding a small package, a book titled Boundaries. No note. I placed it on the counter. Then I found an email from Dad. Short, they tried again. The charity, the calls, they even tried to get your therapist to debrief you. Therapist, they had asked permission to contact her? To triangulate, the implication slugged me. They didn't just want me back, they wanted permission to validate their version of me. I didn't reply, but I wrote it down. At lunch, I met Maya at our favorite cafe. Her eyes were warm but tight. "Listen," she said, "I've been thinking. They're triangulating. Mom even texted me, she asked if you were okay working less hours." Maya reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. I said, "You're doing fine." Her reassurance hit harder than any confrontation. It was one thing to quit playing a part. It was another to have someone believe you can survive without the script. Later, I called the advisor. I asked, "If I liquidate my investments, what's the penalty?" I was considering reinvesting in a business idea I'd shelved. Not to prove anything to them, but to prove to myself I could build on my terms. By 7 p.m., emails rolled in, one from Melissa, one from Mother. Melissa's was long, apologetic or performative, a blur of, "I recognize I hurt you, but we miss you." Sandwiched between pleas for conversation. Mother's was shorter, "Time heals. Don't let pride destroy what's left." I printed both, read them, then shredded, not out of anger, out of resolution. That night, I sat by my kitchen window drinking chamomile tea. No screens. Just quiet. I realized something. My departure hadn't been noticed because I was gone. It had been noticed because I wasn't what they expected. I didn't break. I evolved, and that evolution had become a mirror. They didn't want me back, they wanted me edited. I wasn't available for that anymore. I slept deeply that night, but awoke early. I wrote it down, I exist unedited. The next morning, I locked my journal and put it away. I didn't post. I didn't call. I just lived, and for the first time in years, that was enough, because echoes aren't silence. Their proof were no longer buried. I returned to Denver a year later, not to reconcile, but to retrieve the last pieces of my old life, a few boxes in a storage unit, some financial paperwork still linked to our family account, and the keys to the townhouse I'd put under Melissa's name back when I still believed in loyalty that went only one way. I hadn't told anyone I was coming back. I wasn't here for a performance. I pulled up to the storage unit to find someone already waiting, Dad. Alone. Leaning against his car, hands in pockets, face unreadable. The man who'd spent a lifetime mastering the art of absence was suddenly trying to look present. I heard you were coming, he said. No greeting, no apology, no small talk. Just an assumption of shared awareness. Your mother didn't take it well. I raised an eyebrow. What else is new? He chuckled, dry and hollow. She wants you to come by the house. Says we should talk. I knew better. What she wanted was for me to say the words that would absolve her. She wanted me to play the part I'd always played, the mediator, the rational one, the fixer. But I had resigned from that unpaid role. Permanently, instead, I opened the unit, started sorting, stacking, sealing. Dad didn't move to help. Just stood and watched like a bystander at a controlled demolition. She's different now, he added after a long silence. Softer. I paused. She said that, or you saw it? He looked away. That was answer enough. When I finally turned to leave, he spoke again. I was wrong not to stand up for you. I see that now. I stared at him. He looked smaller somehow. Like the years had eroded not just his stature, but the illusion of command he once projected. I'm not angry anymore, I said. But that doesn't mean I'm coming back. The next stop was the townhouse. Melissa had moved out after the wedding, well, after what was supposed to be a wedding. It had been vacant for months, left untouched like a crime scene no one wanted to acknowledge. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the silence. On the kitchen counter, someone had left a photo. Melissa and me, age 7 and 9, Halloween costumes and candy smiles. There was a note tucked behind it. I don't know how to fix this. But I'm sorry. It wasn't handwritten. It was printed. Like an apology written for court, not for the heart. I didn't take it. Later that night, I met Maya for dinner. She had flown in for a tech conference and insisted we see each other. Over cocktails, I told her about the boxes, the photo. Dad's non-apology, closure is a myth, she said. You don't need them to give it to you. You already closed the door. That's when I realized something that had eluded me all year. I hadn't just walked away, I had built something else. A life with boundaries, with clarity, with earned peace. My absence from their chaos wasn't a retreat. It was an elevation. The next morning, I packed the car and started the drive back to Seattle. Somewhere in Wyoming, I stopped at a roadside diner. I opened my laptop and started writing. Not a resignation letter or a business plan, but the first pages of a memoir. A manifesto. A reckoning. For years, I thought love meant service. That being the strong one meant being the silent one. That family was a bond you honored, no matter how deeply it cut. But now I know better. You do not owe your loyalty to those who weaponize your love. You do not owe your silence to those who feed on it. You do not owe your forgiveness to those who confuse regret with responsibility. I owe only myself, truth, peace, and protection. To anyone watching this who's ever been the invisible sibling, the designated fixer, the family's emotional landfill, I see you. I was you. And I promise you this, there is life beyond the role they've written for you. You can walk away, you can start over, you can be whole, without them, and when you finally are, they'll either meet you there, as equals, or get left behind in the story they refuse to change. Thank you for following this journey with me. If you want to see more true stories like this, about justice, rebirth, and revenge done with grace, don't forget to subscribe. It keeps this channel alive, and lets us keep telling the stories that were never supposed to be told. See you in the next one.